Hello friends, and welcome to the last part of the videos about our road trip around Puglia. In this last part I will show you some absolutely stunning places in Puglia, starting from Alberobello, going to Monopoli, Polignano a Mare, Ostuni and Carovigno. Actually, right now we are going to one of the most Instagrammable and popular places in Puglia. It's called Alberobello. I'm sure you have heard of this place or have seen it all over Instagram a couple of years ago. It's this famous village with beautiful kind of like conus-shaped buildings. So we are finally going there. It's quite a long drive from Gallipoli, so it's almost 2 hours driving. There weren't that many places to stop at on the way, so we just went straight ahead to Alberobello. Even though Alberobello is a very touristy place, it's very busy, there are plenty of parking spaces nearby because there are plenty of parking lots. The only downside is that parking spaces are expensive because you need to pay for the entire day to park. Honestly, I think Alberobello couldn't be busier than it is now. There are literally, I think, thousands of people on the streets, but that is expected because it's one of the most popular villages in this region of Italy. Of course, Alberobello is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's one of the most beautiful and picturesque villages in all Italy. That's why it's so touristy and that's why it's so busy. It's especially busy on the weekends when lots of tour buses come to the town, but also lots of people drive here, so you can expect it to be busy all the time, especially during the highest season from end of April until the middle of October. Alberobello has a very interesting history. Of course, it is famous for its trulli. Trulli are these conical shaped buildings, and the singular of trulli is trullo. The first mention of trulli in the literature appear, I think, in the 14th and 15th centuries, and they were very common in the 15th century. Right now, of course, Alberobello is a larger town. Only in the old historical town you can see trulli. Outside the town you can see normal buildings, but before it used to be the town that consisted of trulli alone. And the reason for that is actually to avoid taxes. In the Kingdom of Naples, it was actually mandatory to pay taxes in settlements, so locals came up with a brilliant idea of building trulli instead of houses because they were really easy to disassemble. If the local authorities came to visit and collect taxes, they would be able to dismantle these houses relatively quickly, and all the authorities would be able to see would be just a pile of stones. And of course it all changed in 1798 when Alberobello finally got a town status. Right now it's mostly a touristy place, and one of the best things to do in Alberobello is just to walk around and enjoy beautiful streets. There are plenty of souvenir shops where you buy ceramics, you can buy plenty of souvenirs, you can buy embroidery, and there are also nice panoramic wine bars like this one, for example. I wouldn't recommend this as a bar because the wine selection was probably the smallest one in the world. They only had one red wine and one white wine. It wasn't that great, but the view from here was absolutely amazing. So if you find some other wine bars, I definitely recommend going there instead. But there are also cafes, there are also plenty of Airbnbs where you can stay in a trullo. There are also lots of nice cafes slightly outside the Old Town area. Overall, I think you can easily spend half a day in Alberobello, and if you want to enjoy it a bit more, maybe even a day. Our next destination was located an hour and a half away from Alberobello, and it's Gravina in Puglia. We went to this place because it was located just a short drive away from our next destination, Matera. Matera was covered in a separate video on this channel, so if you haven't watched it already, go and check it out. Matera definitely deserves a separate video. But we also wanted to visit Gravina because it was featured in one of the recent James Bond movies, No Time to Die. and particularly this bridge was featured there on a car chase. So these are the shots from the movie actually, and it looked absolutely stunning in the movie. So we wanted to see it in real life. So we were actually a little bit sad to find it under reconstruction. It was being renovated, so we couldn't enjoy the full view of this bridge. But Gravina itself kind of felt really medieval. Although, of course, it's not the medieval town, it's much older than that. The archaeological finds testify that the first settlements there were as early as the 5th millennium before Christ. So it is a very, very old town. But it's not touristy at all. There wasn't even a parking, actually. So you can imagine there are very few tourists, but it also felt very authentic. So if you have time, it definitely deserves a visit. After Gravina, we headed straight to Matera, but Matera was filmed in a separate video. So in Matera we stayed for a weekend and then drove to the next destination, to a coastal town with a different scenery, really joyful, really beautiful and colorful, called Polignano a Mare. It took us just over an hour to drive there from Matera, and we had some difficulties finding a parking lot because the ones in the city center were actually closed because of the road works. So we found one that was next to the train station. It was a massive one, but it was quite a long walk to the city center. It took us around 15 to 20 minutes, but if you don't mind a nice walk, and the walk was definitely nice, we saw this beautiful street market selling lots of souvenirs on the way. So if you don't mind it, that's totally fine. Once you enter the old town through this central gate, the architecture changes completely, and the streets become narrower and the views become absolutely beautiful. This is probably one of the most iconic views in Polignano a Mare. It shows up when you start Googling it, and yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. And the beach is actually busy. Because it was end of September, it was still very hot. It was around 30 degrees and the sea temperature was still really, really warm. Lots of people were spending a day on the beach. It was also weekend, so of course it was busy. We spent some time strolling around the streets of the old town. The town looks immaculate, freshly repainted in a really, really good condition, especially compared to Gravina. But then again, Gravina is not a very touristy place. We also originally thought of staying in either Polignano a Mare or Monopoli for a couple of days, but it turned out it's actually really, really pricey to stay there. And probably the most affordable beach destination in Puglia is actually Gallipoli, where we stayed for the chunk of our beach trip in Puglia, and just visited Polignano a Mare and Monopoli for a day, and then also stayed in Caravino for a couple of days. As it turned out, it's much cheaper, but then again, Caravino is not on the sea, so of course you can drive there, but it's not the same as staying right next to the sea and having a view like this from your Airbnb or a hotel. A lot of beaches near Polignano a Mare actually have cliffs and really, really beautiful blue water. There are also plenty of restaurants located in Polignano a Mare. The prices are a little bit on the pricier side compared to other towns in Puglia, but of course much more affordable compared to places like Amalfi Coast, for example. It was time for us to go to the next destination, located just a really short 15-minute drive away. We arrived to a town called Monopoli, and it's time for lunch, so we are looking for a place that is not closing in half an hour because it's already 2:30. We found the prices in Monopoli a bit lower than in Polignano a Mare and got a really beautiful portion of orecchiette, which is a traditional pasta in Puglia. Orecchiette is probably one of my favorite type of pastas, and I can definitely recommend trying it in Puglia. You will love it, and I think we paid something like 8 or 9 euros for a portion of pasta, which was a steal. Given the proximity of Monopoli to Polignano and Mare, I expected the towns to be really similar, but they were actually pretty different, maybe even very different. So there were no cliffs to be found in Monopoli. Instead, there was a really quaint port with nice fishing boats right at the heart of the old town, and this part was really walkable. There was a nice promenade with beautiful views of the town. You could see the old town from different angles. You could see lots of people strolling around and enjoying a nice afternoon in Monopoli. If you're wondering if there are actually beaches in Monopoli and whether it's possible to swim there, yes, there are absolutely lots of beaches around the old town, but you need to go for a little walk. I think the closest ones maybe are around 5-6 minutes walking, and there are more beaches located maybe 10-15 minute walk from the old town. So yeah, there are definitely plenty of swimming opportunities in Monopoli as well. But if you're looking for a place that has a beach right at your doorstep in the heart of the town, maybe Polignano and Mare is a better choice, especially if you're looking for a striking, picturesque beach. However, I think both of these towns are absolutely worth visiting, and they are among some of the most beautiful towns in Puglia. Just like the next location, which was located a slightly longer drive from Monopoli. It took us just over half an hour to get there, and on the way we passed countless plantations of olive trees. It looked very impressive, and actually Puglia is one of the regions that produces the most olive oil in the world, and we tried many types of olive oil in Puglia, and it tasted glorious, absolutely fantastic. So that's an idea for a souvenir that you can bring from Puglia. And pretty much the last stop for today is the beautiful white town of Ostuni, or Ostuni. We're currently walking up to the old town, and it's raining a little bit, but not too much. The views from here are majestic.
Feels nice.
So Ostuni was not located on the coast, so it wasn't a coastal town, but that wasn't the biggest difference from Polignano a Mare, Monopoli or Alberobello. It looked completely different. It actually looked like a town from a completely different country. It somehow reminded me of Greece, maybe because of white walls. It also reminded me a little bit of Marbella Old Town in Spain, also because it had lots of white houses. But unlike Marbella, where they had lots of colorful elements and colorful, for example, flower pots on the windows, Ostuni didn't have many colors in lots of the streets. Of course, some of the houses and churches had blue doors, and that's also another thing that reminded us of Greece. And of course, it's no surprise that Ostuni is known as the White City. It is also sometimes referred to as the White Pearl or La Perla Bianca. The main cathedral of Ostuni was built in the 15th century in the early Gothic style, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There are multiple ways to enter Ostuni. We entered from a less touristy entrance where we parked the car from another gate. That's why the town looked so residential and so empty for a while. But this is actually the main path, there's no gate, but it's the main street that leads right to the heart of Ostuni. And this street is full of shops, restaurants and places to try olive oil. I found at least a couple of olive oil shops, and they sell olive oil from the trees that surround Ostuni. Actually, from the top of the town, you can see the beautiful panorama of the area, and you can see the plantations of olive trees. Before visiting Ostuni, we've heard that the sunset in the town are out of this world. They are absolutely majestic, and the town is best to visit at sunset. But at first we were a little bit sad because it was raining when we arrived, but then the sky cleared up and it was enough for us to see beautiful light and gorgeous sunset, so I can definitely recommend visiting Ostuni but during the sunset because you will see the city in the best light possible. Our final destination for the day was the town called Caravino. We arrived there when it was already dark, so we actually checked in at our Airbnb. It was really affordable, definitely one of the most affordable Airbnbs in the area. And we also went for a little walk around Caravino. It's not a very touristy location, nonetheless it has a very beautiful old town that reminded us a little bit of a mixture between Ostuni and Monopoli, and it even had a little castle. For dinner, we stopped at a place called San Marco Wine Bar. They had little nice cheese and charcuterie boards and some warm dishes like little snacks as well, and a really good selection of wine, so I can definitely recommend it. The next day we actually spent working remotely, but we had some time during lunch to see the city during the sunlight and walk around the old town again. It was Monday, so the town was like a ghost town, and the plan was actually to go to a sandwich bar to get something for lunch, but literally every single place in Caravino was closed. Not a single thing was open, so instead we just walked around the old town. As I mentioned in the first video from Puglia, when we walked around another small town, Specchia, Italy has so many beautiful locations all around the country that in another country, this place would have been a main tourist attraction. But just because Italy has so many places, this is just any other town, any other historic town. Although I would still say that Caravino is on the prettier side. It's definitely a nice place, and I'm pretty sure it's full of life on a Saturday, but it looks completely dead on a Monday. So we went for a little walk and we still had some time left from a lunch, so we decided to Google some places. I found an open grocery store, so that's where we headed to buy lunch. And we were in luck because the grocery store was indeed open, so we were able to get us something for lunch. We returned to the Airbnb, ate and worked a little bit, and then drove back to the airport, which was just a short half-an-hour drive away. This was the final part of the Puglia trilogy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and see you in the next videos. Thanks for watching. Bye!